My name is Andrew. I work under the name Dedouze on social media and on galleries. I am an illustrator. I'm a French illustrator and animator, and I work a lot in 2D, mixing 2D and 3D animation. I use mostly the software Blender, and I try to use this software to create an animation that looks as most as possible as traditional animations, inspired by old Japanese and French illustrations. I don't have a real physical mentor. I have inspirations. I don't always like to tell these inspirations because they are big names and it feels like I'm comparing myself to these people, but I always look up to people like Moebius and Miyazaki and Sid Mead. Sid Mead is an industrial designer that has worked for Hollywood. Moebius and Miyazaki, I think everybody knows already. So these are my big inspirations. I don't know their personal life, but I always look at their artwork as inspiration. So they are my imaginary mentors. I've worked with a lot of kind of companies, big and small, and what I know now is the pressure and the deadlines and even the budget are not always proportional to the size of the company. There is no absolute rule. I think that the projects are interesting when it's big companies that make small projects. It's the best opportunity. The difference of proportion between the size of a company and the size of a project, I think that's the only thing that makes a project easy or too hard. When you have a small company that makes a very big project, it's a big pressure, and a big company that makes a big project, it's a very big pressure too. But sometimes I had to make small projects for big companies, and this is great because for them it's not really a big deal, but they still give you enough budget to do that. And I think that sometimes the biggest company are the most chill in this condition, and it can be even less stressful than working for small brands and small companies. So in my case, I was very lucky. I still hope that someday, I don't know if I am ready yet, but I still hope that someday I will do great projects with great companies too. I'm not saying that the projects I did for them until now were small, but it was really chill. And I was always hired as a single person on my project. I've never had the chance yet to work like on a big team, on a big project, or to manage a big team. So for now, I don't have any experience in that. Maybe someday. So I will see. Well, I have a lot of hobbies, but it's funny, they all ended up as a job because drawing and making animation was a hobby first. I was a web developer. I was doing this, all of this was just in my spare time, and it got bigger and bigger. And I started to be hired by studios and directors in movies to create animations for opening titles for series and things like that. I don't do that a lot, but I did that 2 or 3 times, a couple of times. And my other hobby is to make music. And it's funny because this year I composed the music for a feature film. So this also ended as a job. And I will tell you more later, I think, but it's when you do something very, very seriously, when you do it a lot, it can become a job. So everything I do it. All my hobbies, I do it as if it was a professional project, even if I do it for me. So that's it. So I don't have any other hobbies. I do some other stuff just for testing. I test sculptures, but I am also starting to put clay sculptures in my experimental personal projects. So maybe it will become also part of my work. I had to make a bet when I started working for commissions and for brands because I wanted to develop my style and in the same time work for companies. So I had to decline a lot of offers. So it was a big bet because I missed a lot of projects, but every project that I accepted, it was project that always hired me for my art direction and for my style. So it took a long time, but one project after another, people started to contact me more and more for my style. So I think I think it really depends. There is no rule. There are people who who want to be technically who just want to master the techniques. And I think if you want to master the techniques, even if it's personal or professional, it always works because you just want to do sophisticated stuff and cool stuff, and it doesn't matter for your portfolio or for you. It's just a personal choice in this case if you want to do it for someone or for you. But if you want to develop your world, your inner world, your imaginary characters and style, you will have to decline a lot of projects in the beginning. And sometimes if you can manage the time, you can do professional projects but maybe not post it on your portfolio. So I know a lot of artists who do that. They We think they disappeared from the social media, but actually they're working for big companies, but nobody knows. And then you can find them in credits of movies and stuff like that. And they don't post it on their portfolios, but I think they do it for experience and of course to pay the rent. We all need money, but I think I think you have to always put your personal projects online because at some point the work for the big companies will stop, the mission will stop, and people will ask, well, what were you doing? And maybe you will not always want to show the things you did for that are not in your style. So I think it's I don't have a perfect answer for this. I think it's important to have something to show, even if it's little things, and you have to do it all the time so people remembers what is your vision of art and of life, and maybe it will give you more opportunities for personal projects in the future, but personal projects for companies, because the best projects for me, it was companies who paid me for something that I already did. There are companies who said, oh, this artwork, do you think you can make like an edit of this, but with our brand? That happened 3 times in my career, and it was like one of the coolest contracts. So sometimes personal work can become professional work too, if you really do it well, and you try to do it in a professional level. I think that if we don't have enough personal projects and we want to show our personal projects, we can use the things we did for companies and for commissions and show it in your own way. For example, sometimes I make a little thing in a project for a movie, for example, storyboard or an animatic, whatever the project. And sometimes I isolate, I crop a part of it, or just elements of a few layers, a few assets, and I present it in another way to try to show, highlight my personality in it. And if you work in 3D or even in motion graphics, I think you can do that, by you can change the lights or the colors. It's not completely true, so you have to present it in a way that this is not the real project that I did for the company, but you show that, oh, I just want to show you how I did the motion for this little thing or for this asset, and you can present it in a personal way. For example, I'm just saying like a random technique. Like for example, the company did it in blue in blue lights, but your style is more warm. Then you just edit it for to present it in another way. You just change the colors just for your portfolio and say, oh, this is just like a presentation. It's not the final thing. But there is always a way to make it to turn it into something personal without lying. I think so. So and also when you do the work for a company, you can also already think about how you're going to use it in your portfolio, and maybe put a little more effort on. For example, I don't know, it's just the motion of a haircut or a hand drawing. Maybe if you want to show in the future that you are good in anatomy or you're good in motion of natural elements like fire, cloth, things like that. So I think you can when you do it professionally, you can think how am I going to add it to my portfolio later? I think I will use this element and this, and then I will just change the lights and change the story. Yes, sometimes I also it's something very silly, but sometimes I rework on stuff that is already finished and already delivered. For example, I did like a music video for a brand, and it's already done, and I say, oh my god, I should have done this like this and like this. And sometimes just for the edit and for my portfolio, I add little modifications in it, and I say this was not they didn't keep it in the final clip, but I wanted to show it to you so I can put it in my portfolio, and it becomes like a personal project that I've taken from a professional project. I think that the technique that I use, where I mix 2D animation, traditional animation, and 3D, a lot of people tell me that it feels new, but I really think it's not new, and I'm surprised that big companies did not do it before, because it is something that Disney already did 20 years ago. If you remember the Tarzan animated movie by Disney, there is that sequence that surprised me when I saw it the first time. You see Tarzan sliding on trees, and the character is hand drawn, but the trees are made in 3D. And when I saw that, I thought, oh my god, this is the future of animation. And after that, it disappeared, and it just became full 3D. There was also once an animated movie by Pixar. It was Disney, but not Pixar. It's it's all in black and white, and it's about a guy meeting a girl on a train station, and it's called Paper Plane, and it's a mix of hand-drawn animation that is stuck on 3D. And I thought, yes, this is the future of animation, because all the medias are all mixed together, and I don't know where the technique went. So I think it's not something new, but maybe it was just too hard. And for me, I just looked everywhere. I just searched for the tools to do this. It's something that already exists for me, and it's just that the tools were not ready. And once Blender released a drawing tool in their software, because there was an annotation tool in Blender, but it was not advanced enough, and someday they decided we are going to make a drawing tool in the software, and for me, this was the answer. So I think that the technique already existed, but it's just that people forgot it. So, and also maybe it's because the schools teach you to be part of a pipeline or part of a big team. So they just teach you to be specialized in, I will do just 3D, just 2D, just backgrounds. But actually, there is no rule you can do anything now. the music helps me a lot in my creation because it's as a musician. I know a lot of editors, not a lot, but the few editors that I know, they all have a good sense of rhythm and music. One of them is even a drummer. The first editor that I met in a professional project, the first video editor that I met in a professional project, he was a drummer. And you know, when you have to cut and change the scene, and most of the time when I start to edit a video, I have a music in mind, or sometimes I pick a random music. I look for music libraries and I start to play it and imagine the things and imagine how long it takes to go to the chorus or to change to the next part in the music, and it helps me in my animation. And also, I worked on a movie recently. Lately, I worked on a movie, and it was funny because the edits that the editor made, it always matched with my music, even if we worked separately, and we combined stuff at last minute, and most of the time it was in sync. And we noticed that we had like the same language and same taste in movies and the music. And so there is something, we can scientifically explain it, but there is something that it influences you in the way how you compose and how you direct movies. And of course, you can create movies without sound. You can also create animated image without music, and in this time it's more about speed of well, I don't know how I would do, but if you can hear music, you have to listen to music when you work. It helps. There are techniques that I want to use in the future. It's not really a technique, but it's more maybe a medium. We can call that a medium. It's more real-time things and interactive things. I've always liked this, but I don't do this now because I don't play a lot of video games and I don't experiment a lot. I think that I don't know if it's the case of a lot of artists, but it's hard to create something that you don't consume yourself, that you don't buy or that you don't watch. I watch a lot of movies, so I want to make movies. I go to art galleries and look at illustrations, and it inspires me to create illustrations. And when I play a video game, I want to create a video game. It's just for, in the last years, I haven't played a lot, but I remember when I was younger, I played a lot of video games. And every time that I finished playing a game, I wanted to create one. So maybe when I will have more free time, I will go back to my favorite video games, and it will make me want to create things. So I think the interactive stuff and the real-time stuff is something I want to experiment in the future. So I could go back in the 80s. I think, like a lot of people, I think I would buy all the synthesizers and clothes and keep all of them, buy them for cheap. It will be so cheap. All the analog synthesizers and the game consoles. And I don't know what I will do with this. I'll just keep it in my home. My favorite animated movies. This is gonna be a very common answer, not an original answer, but the Ghibli movies are my favorites. But it's funny, but my favorite Ghibli movie is not the one that influenced me the most, and it's not the first one that I saw, but it's a two-part story. I saw my first Ghibli movie when I was little. It was Porco Rosso, and then I forgot it because life, and I went to school, and I had other. I was interested in other. I was doing other things. I was doing a lot of music when I was a teenager, so I forgot animation. And then later I saw. So Porco Rosso was the first one. I was really little, and later I saw very late in university. I saw a DVD version of Spirited Away. Someone showed it to me, and there was a lot of emotion that came back to me and say, "Oh my God, I know this. I know this world." And I started to look at what the heck is that? What is Miyazaki? What is Ghibli? And then I saw Porco Rosso again, and then the memories came back. And I knew that it's because of Porco Rosso that I had this taste for illustration and animation, because I read a lot of comics when I was young, and I watched a lot of movies, but it didn't give the same emotion to me as much as Porco Rosso. So I think Porco Rosso is the movie that gave me the taste for animation. And my favorite is Spirited Away. So it's both movies in different ways. They are my big references. To Motion Plus Design, thanks for having me here. I am very surprised but happy at the same time to be invited here, because I don't consider myself like a motion designer, but I look a lot at at other works, and I watch a lot of motion design in my work as an inspiration, and I'm very happy to be here because it says that the genres are connected. If you make science fiction movies, if you make animated comics, or if you make logo designs, there is a common language. It's the sense of rhythm, the sense of shape. It's an universal thing. So it says that doesn't matter what you do, if you animated a poster, a logo, or a bird, or a person, or a movie, it's all connected. It's the same kind of art. So wherever you go, you can always be happy with what you're doing. So it's not just a message for motion plus design, but for every artist. So whatever you're doing, it's you can express your vision of the world, even if it's in designing a logo, or designing just just one person, or a whole scene with a whole crowd. So I'm very happy to know that we understand each other. And so thank you again.